Nosferatu are the most visibly cursed when it comes to all kindred, and their embrace horribly, painfully disfigures them. Absimiliard, that was the name that was given to the Nosferatu Antediluvian. They were embraced in the shadow of Enoch. Absimiliard was a very skilled, very powerful hunter. He was also incredibly vain during that particular period of time. He was so handsome, so muy guapo, that the second generation took some interest into him, and that's how he became the target to become an antediluvian. The story goes that the embrace was fast, but the embrace left a very small scar on his face. This scar wounded his pride, it damaged his ego, and it really inflamed that vanity. So much so that he let it fester, and it became a deep-seated hatred of his sire. It eventually led Absimiliard to turn on his sire and kill them. In the early days of humanity, the Nosferatu didn't get along too well with the rest of humankind. They actively hunted them, they were totally unable to coexist, and mortals would either run away from them entirely, or they would turn to pitchforks and torches and actively seek out to destroy the Nosferatu that were hunting them. Many of this clan, during the rise of some of the great civilizations, Rome and Egypt to be specific, they hid in the riverbeds to hunt the farmers at night. And when the Romans built the catacombs, this is when the Nosferatu were able to get back into mortal society. However, they did it from these catacombs. Because they had chosen these places to reside in mortal society, some of the other vampire clans looked down on them, in particular the Malkavians and the Ventru. In modern nights, the Nosferatu still live in the sewers. However, they are very tech-savvy. They have actively adopted technology because they feel metaphorically that their antediluvian is breathing down the back of their neck. They have also taken great lengths to protect themselves and their warrens. They have effectively done this by squatting in deserted Cold War bunkers that they found throughout all of the major cities, as this was a major thing. There was a lot of paranoia around this. They have also created their own internet. They call this ShreckNET, and it is essentially used for passage of information, sharing of secrets, gathering and reporting information, and I'll cover this in a little bit more detail in just a minute. One of the most unique and absolutely horrifying events within the 90s was the rise of the Shadow Curtain. This happened in Russia, and it was essentially a mystical barrier that separated vampires from the old Soviet Union and the rest of the world. It was later revealed that this shadow curtain that popped up was Baba Yaga, a fourth generation Nosferatu. What was terrifying to the Nosferatu was not that Baba Yaga had just appeared and destroyed everything in the Shadow Curtain, but what scared them is how Baba Yaga was destroyed. Baba Yaga was destroyed by a Niktuku, largely thought to be a myth and a paranoid delusion of a hideous clan, at least that's what everybody else thinks, including some of the Nosferatu. The story goes that their antediluvian sired not one bloodline, but two, one of the Nosferatu and one of the Niktuku. In the Final Night setting, the Nosferatu treat the Niktuku very seriously. One of the reasons they do this is because they also enjoy living in the sewers, and they've turned them into these massive bunkers and fortresses, so they respect their ability to do this. Because these fortresses are very secure, and they come with gun bunkers. And one of the reasons that ShreckNET exists was so that the Nosferatu could exchange information about the Niktuku sightings. If you're finding some value out of the video today, then please let me know by hitting the thumbs up button. If you'd like to see more content like this from myself, then please hit subscribe with the bell notification. In the description, I will have links to my Patreon and Ko-fi if you would like to support me financially. Otherwise, just watching this video through is support enough for me. Thank you. Now, on to ShreckNET. Coming back to ShreckNET, this was originally created in New York by a Nosferatu going by the name of Gerard Raffin, also known as Uncle Smelly. In its initial phases, this was more of a special network that piggybacked on the existing internet infrastructure. and it was used exclusively by Nosferatu. Other Nosferatu in different cities had also created their own networks, and eventually as time progressed and the internet became more accessible worldwide, it was easier to connect these individual networks together under the infrastructure of the internet, and that's how ShreckNET became a thing. The Nosferatu have also allowed access to other members in a limited capacity. For instance, during the Camarilla siege of the Sabbat for New York City, the Nosferatu begrudgingly gave the Camarilla members access to ShreckNET, at least in a limited capacity, but by far the most usage from this network was done by the Nosferatu themselves.
It's a Unix system. I know this.
In the 90s, ShreckNET was breached by a hacker known as Hurricane. Being rather impressed, the Nosferatu allowed Hurricane to interact with their community, and this happened for about another decade, allowing other tech-savvy vampires to join this collective, this growing collective, and this likely had an impact on certain vampires joining and forming their own community that was more loyal to itself and their kindred than any specific clan or sect. This was called the Red Question. And sometime in 2000, ShreckNET got an update to ShreckNET 2.0, as did many things in the dot-com bubble. Instead of being a hidden network, the ShreckNET turned into its own web application. It was designed entirely by Nosferatu programmers, and this basically facilitated a kindred-only internet. Only those who had perception with Auspex could actually see what was going on. Any mortal who looked at it just wouldn't be able to perceive it, unless you were using a ShreckNET browser, which does allow you to see it without needing to use the Auspex. In doing things this way, the Masquerade was thus protected, and the programmers received some significant reputation and status from the inner circle. New contributions were added, and the ShreckNET was expanded from different groups that gained access to it. Groups like the Red Question, others like Digital Draculas, and hacktivist thaumaturges. Now in 2004, things went sideways very badly for ShreckNET, as it was infiltrated by the NSA. This led to over 10 years of vampire history and information being compromised. The Camarilla ordered ShreckNET to be dismantled, and anyone still using it to communicate with other kindred be branded as disloyal, and if the information was particularly sensitive, they would be the subject of a blood hunt, and that is the end of you. Now when it comes to clan organization, Nosferatu are organized into broods, communities that are generally located around a central sewer system. Nosferatu are typically stereotyped as ugly on the outside and humane, good hearts on the inside, but that's not technically true. This image has also been crafted by the Nosferatu, as they only send their friendliest to communicate with the Camarilla. It should be unsurprising that this clan also supports clan loyalty above anything else. They really have to rely on each other for services because nobody else really gives a crap about them unless they are trying to get something from them. Their structure typically works with the oldest and the most experienced Nosferatu guiding the younger generations. There is also a very strong survivalist instinct that is part of most Nosferatu, largely because they have to be good at this, because if you want to live in the sewers, you got to be a really good survivalist. The Nosferatu also spawn and ghoul animals as defense mechanisms. What they will do is they will find a watering hole or a spot that animals like to drink from, they will taint it with their vitae, and over a short period of time, any animal that drinks from this spot will become loyal to the Nosferatu. Now in both the Camarilla and the Sabbat, Nosferatu are very good spy masters. They are very good brokers of information. The Nosferatu invest a significant amount of time and energy into teaching new childer memory games, memorization games, how to use riddles effectively. They represent themselves as antisocial, and they choose to actively avoid the vampire politics in favor of finding more secrets and more information. Now the Nosferatu also have a complex about beauty, being that they are themselves horribly disfigured. They tend to make the clans that have a very high opinion of themselves come down to their level, especially if they want something. The Toreador, they pay a premium on information. And it's not uncommon for the Nosferatu to force some of these other high and mighty clans to crawl through the sewers or do something degrading or humiliating just to come and speak with them. So how do the Nosferatu become so unbelievably ugly? First off, it's their embrace. This is what makes them horribly disfigured. And the Nosferatu target typically two types of people for the embrace. Those whom it would actually be a step up for them, so typically the disenfranchised, people that have nowhere else to go, at least they can join a community even if they are severely disfigured. And then there are those where the disfigurement becomes a significant step down. High society, the snooty, if you will. If you are someone in that caste of society, this is more of a revenge embrace. And the second group, who gets targeted, they are generally called Cleopatras within the Nosferatu clan. Because life and existence is largely a punishment for them, and every bit of it is just awful for them. When it comes to clan variants, there are only two types of clan variants for the Nosferatu. Nosferatu in the Ashira-controlled territories experienced a great divide when Islam became the predominant religion in the area. The Mutasharid are a group of Nosferatu who refused to convert to Islam. Again, focusing on survival, the Mutasharid also developed their own information networks. They retreated into the deserts and took the desirable spots, the safe havens, if you will, as their domain. In modern nights, the Mutasharid are not seen in Arabia and appear to have vanished. The Nosferatu who did stay and convert to Islam, they became well respected within the Ashira-controlled territories. In Islam, they viewed that redemption could be found for their horrible disfiguredness. The second clan variant would be the Nosferatu Antitribu. Now, if you ask a Nosferatu, there really is no difference between them and their Camarilla cousins. In reality, though, the Sabbat Nosferatu are probably the most humane. They have grown beyond the need for sheer brutality. They have come to accept their monstrous nature, at least their monstrous appearance, and they don't feel the need to act out a certain part. A Nosferatu Antitribu, now their moves are generally precise, pretty calculated. They like to plan out what they're doing. And many young Nosferatu feel that the Antitribu are too soft. That is until they insult one of the Antitribu in the blackness of their home, and that's when the creeps really show what they are capable of, however they just prefer not to. If I was to blend in another tribe from Werewolf the Apocalypse, this is no contest, you would have to blend in the Ratkin. Like most of the changing breeds, Ratkin were given a very specific purpose, and that was to cull or at least control the human population. They did this through spreading disease and eating the human food, and they did this with great amount of success. At least until the Guru decided to impose their will on all of the changing breeds, and that didn't go well for anybody. This is what sparked the War of Rage. It also nearly drove the Ratkin to complete extinction in the War of Rage, along with several other changing breeds, and some actually went full-on extinct. In the aftermath of the War of Rage, the Ratkin were forced underground, into the sewers. This is where they started to make a comeback, as it were, and with society expanding, this became much easier. Ratkin are very feral and brutal creatures. Ratkin are also wild-touched, so they also have a spark of crazy in them. Now this means that they can frenzy, like many of the other changing breeds, especially the Guru, but they can also enter a hallucinogenic state known as rapture, and I think they would blend very well with the Nosferatu clan. If you would like to see some other vampire clans that I have covered, then please check this playlist on the screen out now. Thank you to all of my patron supporters who have helped and supported me throughout the ongoing months. All of your support means the absolute world to me. My name's Nathaniel. Thanks for stopping by, everyone.